Hello everyone, welcome back to Angel Studies. We are on episode 3 and we are focusing in on stress still. Today I'm really going to take some extra time and go over 7 main causes of stress in our lives and how by handing those things and those worries over to God, we can allow the stress that we experience in life to be productive and to be positive and to allow it to push us and motivate us to do better in every aspect of our lives. So, last week we left off reading in 2 Corinthians 4. So I'm going to read verses 8 and 9. We are hard pressed on every side, yet not crushed. We are perplexed, but not in despair. Persecuted, but not forsaken. Struck down, but not destroyed. I find that those 2 verses to be very applicable because it feels in life like we are being pushed on from all sides, pulled and tugged in so many different ways, whether that's by school and work, family, social media, our responsibilities, our desires for the future, the goals that we have for ourselves, the goals that other people may have for us, and it just feels like everything is coming down on us. Like we're hard pressed, we're perplexed, and we're persecuted and struck down, but it's very, very important for us to realize that we're not crushed. We're not in despair. We're not forsaken, and we're not destroyed because God is there with us and supporting us and helping us figure out our way through those things. We all understand that everyone in this world deals with stress, and oftentimes stress is seen as a negative thing. It negatively impacts so many people, it runs so many people's lives, and everyone views stress negatively. And it's very, very important to know that although stress can be negative, it is imperative for us to have a certain level of stress so that we have that as our motivation. And so there is a negative aspect of stress, but there's also a positive aspect of stress in our lives. And something that June Hunt states is that there are 4 different stages of stress. Stage 1 is where there's such a low level of stress that it provides no motivation for a person. That person often finds themselves being lazy, focusing on playing video games or just watching TV, but not actually getting anything productive done outside of that. And so you don't want so little stress that you're not pushing yourself for better, pushing yourself to do more in life. Her second stage is a positive level of stress that motivates one to work responsibly, whether that's in doing their work for whatever job they have or studying for school and classes to keep their grades up, or if that's focusing and motivating them to work out and focus on bettering themselves physically and health-wise, focusing on making sure that they're eating the right things for themselves. And then her level 3 is a negative level of stress where there's still motivation, but that person has become slower in actually accomplishing things because they feel so overwhelmed by the stress. And I think that's where a lot of people find themselves oftentimes, and that's why we think of stress negatively, is because we end up in that stress where we feel like we're being motivated to push ourselves and to get more done, but we're so overwhelmed that we're not productively getting things done, and everything seems to take time and more time. And we really want to avoid being in that spot because even though we're motivated, we're really, really close to a burnout. And that is what her 4th level of stress is a burnout. There's so much stress that there's no more motivation. There's that lack of motivation because you just feel so overwhelmed that you think you can't get any of it done. And so there's no movement, there's no motivation, and that's really something that when we reach that place, because a lot of us will end up in that spot during life, and it's just a time where we really need to focus in on God and have Him help us to refocus our lives and our priorities, refocus how many things we really need to get done. And sometimes it's our mindset that maybe we're distracted by this thing or that, and we're not really focusing on Him. And I've actually found that when I'm distracted and I miss Bible study or I miss having my prayer time in the morning, that my entire rest of the day is not as productive. So I think sometimes if we just take a step back when we're at a burnout and we focus ourselves on God and His desires for us in our lives, it can shift our place and our amount of stress drastically and dramatically. While there are many causes for stress, we're going to focus on 7 main causes for stress that June Hunt outlines in one of her books that are found in 2 Corinthians 11. In verses 23 and 24, it says, "Are they ministers of Christ? I speak as a fool. I am more. In labors more abundant, in stripes above measure, in prison more frequently, in death often. From the Jews 5 times I received 40 stripes, minus 1. And that's focusing on conflict. That conflict can cause stress for us. Whether that's an argument with your parents that's stressing you out because you're worried about your relationships, an argument with family conflict, as in like on social media, maybe someone's seemingly attacking you, conflict in your surroundings, and those things can be really rough. They can really get down to your feelings, and we just have to know that everyone deals with conflict. Everyone deals with it differently, and it can stress some people out more than others. And it's just important to know that even when we are conflicted or in the middle of an argument or feeling really broken relationally, that God holds our hearts. God holds our future in His hands, and He wants to carry us through it. But if we don't let Him, then we are going to feel trapped in that stress, trapped in that event in life until we hand it over to Him. Going on, crisis is another cause for stress. In verses 25 through 26, it says, 3 times I was beaten with rods. Just to give understanding to this area, Paul is talking about things he's gone through and about suffering for Christ. So, 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times I was shipwrecked. A night and a day I have been in journeys, often in perils of water, in perils of robbers, in perils of my own countrymen, in perils of the Gentiles, in perils in the city, in perils in the wilderness, in perils in the sea, in perils among false brethren. He's talking about many different kinds of crisis, whether that's things like when hurricanes hit, natural disasters, things that are completely out of our control, crisis of losing a loved one. All of the things that are related to crisis are most of the time completely and totally out of our control, out of our hands, things that we can't really change, and they're going to cause stress in our lives. But it's how we deal with that stress that affects how much it affects our life and our mental well-being. And so we really, if we're focusing in on Christ and letting Him carry us through those crises and comfort us through those losses in life, that's when we are able to get past that stress and overcome it. I know, like, in 2017, Harvey hit the Houston area and South Texas area really, really bad. And there were flooded houses everywhere. And it was really stressful for so many people. And we were still able, even in that stress, to find joy in the journey of bringing our area back to healing. As we went out and our church provided food for the people who were working on their houses, as well as we had teams going out helping do demolition, whether that was for the people in our church whose houses had flooded or for complete strangers. And so it was really something that brought our community together, even in the crisis, even in the stress. And we were all able to heal our area and help each other out, as well as share the love of Christ through that crisis. And God can use so many crises in our lives to bring us and others closer to Him. And that is very important for us to understand. Another thing that this verse really focuses on is change. So verse 26 and 27. In journeys, often in perils of water, in perils of robbers, in perils of my own countrymen, in perils of the Gentiles, in perils in the city, in perils in the wilderness, in perils in the sea, in perils among false brethren, in weariness and toil, in sleeplessness often, in hunger and thirst, in fastings often, in cold and in nakedness. There were so many things that Paul was experiencing, so many changes, and honestly so many moves, and sometimes changes in life, whether that's going from high school to working, high school to college, college to a job, maybe college to further education. I know for me, I'm working towards going to law school eventually, and those changes can seem so overwhelming and so stressful. Studying for me for the LSAT seems really overwhelming and stressful, but if we hand it to God and we take it little by little, He can carry us through those things. He can support us. He can give us the peace of mind to be able to deal with those things and study for them or prepare ourselves for them. There are so many changes that we will go through in the course of life, and it's important to know that God is with us through it all. He's with us through every move, whether it's a move to a campus or a move from one house to another, from one city or state to another, and He is there to support us through those things. Going on to condemnation in verse 26, he was not only being condemned by other people that he had never met. He was being condemned by his own people, his own brothers and family members that he had grown up learning with. Paul had previously been, to give some background on this, he had previously been a Pharisee among the Jewish people, and then he stepped out in faith after he was given back his sight, and he stepped out in faith in Christ and in Jesus. And at that point in time, he suddenly went from persecuting the Christians to leading the Christians. And it was such a flip that all of his brothers that he had been working with, his family, his friends, that he had been working with to persecute the Christians, were then persecuting him. And I'd never really connected with this before, but I think in this day and age, there are so many people who, if they believe this thing or they come out speaking about something that's very much a touchy subject, they will lose friends. They may lose certain relationships with family members. Family members may not agree with them, may attack them for whatever their beliefs may be. And it's important to know that even in this, and even in that loss of friendship, maybe it was a lifelong friendship, and even in that loss of relationships and close relationships, God is with us, and He is our Father, He's our friend, and He's there to give us that relationship, and we can have that relationship with Him that no matter what changes in our life, He will still be there for us if we are focusing our eyes on Him. Going on, In verse 28, it says, "Besides the other things, what comes upon me daily is my deep concern for all the churches." Concerns. We have so many concerns in life. We're concerned about our future, concerned about our grades, concerned about our health, concerned maybe about a family member's health, concerned about how am I going to pay my bills, how am I going to pay for college in the future, how am I going to get into the law school I want to get into the medical school that you may want to get into. And it's just important to know that even when we're concerned about these things, concerned maybe about the future of a friend, the heart of a friend that is lost, that we can support them and love them, and we can be concerned about them without letting it weigh down on our stress levels so much that we end up in that burnout, or that we end up bringing those responsibilities on us when it's not yet something to worry about. Because today has enough worries of its own, and tomorrow will have its own worries. And so we need to focus on today and what we're doing. And one way to help with that is to be in prayer. Pray to God, give Him your concerns, allow Him to carry those burdens, and let Him carry you through it. Because yes, in this life, in this world, there are going to be so many things to be concerned about. But we need to focus on God and what He has for us. And by doing that, it will allow us not to stress ourselves out towards a burnout with those concerns, but to allow Him to carry them. And we can still be concerned about them and pray about them and focus on trying to overcome them, but not allowing it to take us into that fourth stage of stress that is complete and total burnout. Going on to verse 30, "If I must boast, I will boast in the things which concern my infirmity." Another version of that is, "If I must boast, I will boast in the things that show my weakness." So this is talking specifically about competition. We may have competition mentally with ourselves. We're trying to push ourselves to reach a certain level. Competition in the workplace. Maybe you and another coworker are trying to get that next raise, that next position. And competition in sports for those of us that do sports. And competition can be a good thing. Competition can be great. It can motivate us. It can be that motivational stress that pushes us to better ourselves, but it becomes a negative thing when we change it from competition, where we're trying to better ourselves the same way our opponents are or other people in life are, to when we start doing comparison, where we compare our every move and our everything to someone else, and that's when it becomes negative. Comparison can rip you apart. It can tear you up so much that your motivation goes to burnout. It can shred your confidence. It can do so many terrible things to your psyche. So we really need to focus on, yes, competition and being competitive is great, but we need to focus on handing even that over to the Lord and having Him help us to focus on that positive competition rather than allowing it to become a comparison where we compare our every look, our every move, our every action to someone else. Because in life, there is always going to be someone who is better than you, who is stronger than you, who is up at a higher level in a business than you are, who's producing better graphics, producing better music, producing better grades. And that's okay, because there are people that are better than us, and there are people that are better than the people we may be comparing ourselves to. So that is why it's important to try and avoid that comparison and that comparison mindset. Verse 31 says, "The God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, who is blessed forever, knows that I am not lying." And so this really focuses in on conscience. And what Miss Hunt says is reasons that you can challenge conscience is self, others, or things seem more important than God. Self-effort is perceived as the best way of meeting needs. So it's really when you're focusing so much on how you can better yourself or where you stand that you've forgotten that God's there and He's the one who's guiding you. And we should allow our conscience to be able to call us out on the issues that we may be having in life or on that sin or, oh, hey, you didn't study the Bible today. But we shouldn't let it weigh us down with such guilt that we're like, oh, I'm such a terrible person for not doing that. I'll never get better. What we should do is let it push us and motivate us to, okay, I may already be in bed when I'm realizing that I didn't study any of the words. So I'm going to get up, I'm going to get my Bible out, and I'm going to read it. Or it'll motivate you in the morning. If maybe you realize that yesterday you didn't study, maybe it'll motivate you to spend some extra time in the Word, some extra time in prayer for that day. So the whole mindset of stress, or the whole issue of stress, is really a change of mindset to hand that stress over to God and allow it to motivate you without leading you to burnout and overwhelming you. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, please like and share. Leave me a comment on what subject you might want me to cover next once I finish this section. If you are on Instagram, please go and follow my page. And the link to my YouTube channel is in my bio. If you are on YouTube, please subscribe to my page and hit the bell notification button so that you can get notifications every single time that I post. And my Instagram is in the description on the video. See you next week.